The annual Brooks family beach home invitation was like a ticking time bomb in my inbox. Reunion, mark your calendars for my sister Trinity's joyous mass. Since I was aware of how everything would unfold, the email could as well have been sent to everyone but me. I'm Quinn, and I've been the family's disappointment for the last 5 years. My mother Iris constantly reminds me of it, whether it's through stern silence or the barely perceptible sighs of disapproval peering over my desk. Remington said, "You're not going to let it get to you again this year, are you?" I instantly closed the email because of his worried expression. "Of course not," he said. "Just another day at the office." I pretended to smile while lying, but it wasn't merely one more day. The beach house with my family had all of my treasured memories. Childhood, prior to my transformation as an outsider. I recall the summer I turned. When everything changed at 12, Quinn said, "Why don't you assist in the kitchen, Quinn, my love?" Mom had remarked as Trinity got. "Nelson, sweetheart, go show the neighbors your new project." I sat there watching Dad attend business meetings on the veranda, reading novels by myself, which they considered a waste of time. My phone buzzed, and I received a text from my. Let me guess, I typed back another reunion email to my childhood pal Savannah. "Want to wager how long it will be until Mom calls to let you know why there isn't as much room this year?" The response was found inside. The very moment my mother's name appeared on my phone screen, Quinn. "Sweetheart," she started, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness about the. "Mom, let me save you the trouble during the reunion." I interrupted, startling myself with my steadiness. "Trinity's children need their own space, or is the house too crowded? This year, Nelson's new girlfriend requires more space." The quiet on the other end was, "It's loud, but you know how she finally got Trinity's kids to." I looked at the promotion letter that was on my desk, the one I hadn't disclosed, at such a significant age. Them regarding the company's youngest employee, the senior vice president, who is 35 years old. History, yes, Mom, I am fully aware of how it is. I hung up and then walked to Lance's. He looked up from his computer. He had been my boss and mentor for the last 10 years. "Family?" he questioned, pointing to the chair across from me, seeing my emotion at once. I nodded to him and sank into the seat. "I sometimes question why I still let it impact me, since you're human," he added plainly, "but the best." With a feeble smile, I gave retribution for success. "No," he leaned forward, his eyes sparkling. "The best retaliation is getting so good. They can't ignore you any longer." In relation to that, have you given my suggestion any thought? Regarding the Richardson merger, I took out my iPad and set aside my family-related thoughts. In fact, I've been working on some numbers. What if we took a different approach? Over the course of the following hour, we entered my true comfort zone at work, and as I explained my plan to Lance, I felt the well-known rush of self-assurance returned. This was my place, where I excelled. Later that night, Savannah contacted me on the way home and said, "You know what you necessity?" Without introducing herself, she stated, a plan for what to show them exactly. "Quinn, you are a force to be reckoned with. You are no longer that scared little girl that they have been missing." I halted at a red light and observed the city lights flickering through my windshield. "The point is they've made it obvious where I stand." After hanging up, I sat in my parked car and gazed at my luxury. Perhaps it's time for them to recognize that they deserve better. 10 years ago, I began as an intern at an apartment building with the goal of proving everyone was mistaken, and now I had everything they said I would never succeed in. Independence in every way, with the exception of family approval. My phone rang. Another email to Trinity with pictures from the reunion from last year. Happy smiles inside. Jokes brought to light memories I was not a part of, but instead of the typical hurt I experienced. Determination, something unusual simmering inside me. I opened my laptop and opened the real estate website. I had been keeping an eye on. The market value of the beach house had drastically decreased due to the current economic slump. Our parents were unable to retain the same beach house. Time for a different kind of investment, I said to myself as I clicked the button to contact the agent. Perhaps Savannah was correct. Perhaps was it time for a plan? I convinced myself it was for justice, not retaliation. Compound interest is a component of the Richardson merger, which goes beyond simply pooling assets, as I outlined. Prior to the board of directors, my laser pointer emphasized the need to redefine market presence. Remington, seated at the far end of the conference table, gave me a subtly encouraging thumbs up when I saw important projections on the screen behind me. We both knew how to prepare this presentation after many late hours. This was an important event, and you know this. Mr. Richardson himself leaned forward, examining the data with a wrinkled face. The information I risked my reputation on, I responded without. One more significantly, I rely on them for the future of both of our businesses. From his seat next to Mr. Richardson, Lance cleared his throat. Quinn has never led us astray previously, and her record speaks for itself. The 2-hour meeting came to an end. Lance drew me in as the board members filed out after shaking hands and signing preliminary agreements. Aside from the excellent work, he smiled, but I must wonder why you didn't bring up the Hong Kong promotion opportunity. The success of this merger essentially ensures you the job. My stomach clenched. The opportunity to lead the foreign division was a career-defining one, and it coincided with the next dates of the family reunion. I'm still weighing my options, I said thoughtfully back at my coffee in hand, Remington sitting on the edge of the desk. Spill it. What's truly holding you back? You've worked so hard for this. Before I could even answer my phone, Trinity's name flashed on the screen and buzzed, so I sent it to voicemail. Savannah revealed that family strife is preventing her from coming with lunch packs. As usual, I assumed we would meet at the cafe. I expressed gratitude for the interruption, but I later changed my mind. In addition to wanted to witness the fallout from your major presentation. She handed out sandwiches before giving me a sly glance. I whispered, Hong Kong news travels quickly. In this instance, good news should travel. You can't really be thinking about passing this up because of them, Remington argued. My phone chimed once more. Trinity Mom texted you to inquire if you received the email about the reunion. Please reply. Oh crap, Savannah snatched up my phone. You know what, they're realizing. They can no longer ignore you. The family rumor must have heard about your success. Returned my phone. I reached for it, but she didn't give it to me till you pledged to never longer allow them to control your decisions in life. But I'm not. I started to protest, but Remington interrupted. Quinn recalled the charity gala from previous month when you truly are not the CEO who commanded that room full of them. They gave you the impression that your phone was buzzing for the third time. Nelson, the invisible middle kid. This time, sis, I have a moment to converse. All of a sudden, everyone wants to talk. Savannah smiled as I answered dryly, because you're getting harder to ignore. Regarding Hong Kong, the timing of my start was ideal, and Remington completed the show. Lance showed up in my office when they were playing Happy Family at their cherished beach house, letting them know exactly what they were missing. Doorway Quinn. Mr. Richardson would like to talk about methods of implementation over. I stood up, smoothing my jacket after dinner today, and texted Lance the information. Right after supper, Savannah arched an eyebrow and said, Look at you, power moves only. Just dinner with one of the most influential men in the industry, he added, grinning. Remington clarified. Your family most likely believes you're still promoting yourself in some low-paying job, but my phone rang with another. This time, Quinn, please message Mom and call as soon as you can. Family is important. Important family issues. Like Savannah's reading it over my shoulder and snorting. When they ran out of reasons to keep you out, I picked up my presentation. Materials. Thoughts are already turning to the upcoming meal, so they may continue to make excuses. That's my lady, Remington smiled. I have an empire to build. Speaking of constructing things, have you made a bid on the beach house yet? Tomorrow, I responded, looking at my small mirror to check my makeup. We are the only serious purchasers in this market, according to the agent. The time is perfect. Before they revealed the specifics of this year's reunion, Savannah performed while I was getting ready for My family may have perfected the art of making me feel little, because after Richardson's supper, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. However, I was anything but Hey Remington in this world of mine. I smiled as I thought about the trip. Remember who you are in there. Show them what Quinn Unleashed looks like. I have a beach property listing in my inbox, and I intend to share it to everyone. Who I am, Ms. Brooks, congrats. You own the beach house. The keys were slid over the real estate agent's desk, their metal surface shining in the fluorescent lights. As I lifted them up, my hand shook a little. These tiny metal objects stood for more than simply property. They held the secrets to both my history and, more significantly, my future. I can't I think you really did it, Savannah said next to me, holding my arm. The papers will be processed before the end, the agent said with a professional smile. Of business day considering the state of the market, you've made a very wise investment. Leaving the... I gripped the keys to the office so tightly that they made marks on my palm. My phone. Lance called and said, "Tell me you closed the deal," without introducing himself. Signed the documents at the ideal moment. If you want the Hong Kong position to be accepted by the board, I stopped this morning. Savannah bumped into me when I was walking, so I initially believed the choice wasn't. It was sealed by your performance at the Richardson dinner, which he explicitly asked you to lead, till next month. After hearing both sides of the story, the merger transition team Savannah was virtually jumping with excitement. She took hold of my shoulders as I hung up. All right, this is absolutely ideal. Tell me that you're going to become an international executive and that you possess their priceless beach property. For all it's worth, this weekend's Trinity family meeting sent me a text message on my phone. Regarding the reunion, Mom is adamant that you attend. Oh, Savannah, this is too fantastic. They're unaware that you control their reunion space, and neither is the agent, I reminded. I ensured that the purchase was done using my company name, Sneaky Eye. I adore it. As we headed to the car, she put her arm in mine. What's the plan? Remington called Lance and informed me of the news before I could respond. Bits of information: you will accept Hong Kong, correct? I haven't made up my mind yet, I said, putting. As we traveled, he was on speaker. What's to say? It's wonderful. You can operate the being from Asia raises your profile globally and allows your family to indulge in their apologies. Speaking of stewing, Savannah added that Quinn was just called to A. Remington laughed when the family met to discuss the reunion. Are you? I proceeded to turn onto the coastal road in the direction of my beach cottage house. In fact, I believe it's time to pay you a visit. The once familiar trip seemed strange now, with each turn in the street and each view of I owned the ocean between the trees in a manner that had never been mine before I parked in. I remembered Savannah's worn blue paint and white trim on the front of the enormous Victorian house. Whispering low, I forgot how beautiful this area is. It makes sense that they are desperate to continue the reunions. As I ascended the stairs and used my new keys to unlock the door, the house smelled of memories of summer evening family dinners with whispered discussions and sea salt. However, beneath it all was the delightful aroma of triumph. Mom, Quinn's phone rang. Trinity texted you, so are you coming this weekend? Actually, Mom, I'm at the beach house at the moment. Quiet, then as the realtor described it. I walked across the living room and wondered if she was interesting. I'm moving my fingers around the well-known walls of the room. Don't worry, I hung up before she could reply since Savannah was recording. See you this weekend. Her pleasure was scarcely contained by anything on her phone. That was very lovely. Remington responded, send me that video, please. Did you hear her voice crack? I opened the French doors to the deck and breathed in the ocean air through the speaker because I need it for future generations. Funny enough, they constantly claimed that I didn't appreciate family customs, even though I was the one who preserved them. Sometimes, Savannah continued with a chuckle, by buying it out from under them. The best kind of retaliation is to preserve what I said rather than destroy it while watching the waves smash below. On your own terms, Mom. And Trinity Nelson's phone chimed quickly again. Remington's voice crackled through the speaker as I disregarded them all in succession. What should I do next, boss? As we get ready for a reunion, I grinned as I thought about the impending family gathering. Savannah offered me company this weekend, and they won't forget it. I make a great witness. No, I responded, taking out my laptop. I have to do this by myself, though. I had an acceptance letter from Hong Kong to write first. As I stood on my veranda and gazed out at the water, I felt the final pieces fall into place. When my plan came to pass, the terrified young girl who used to hide in the corners of this house vanished. The sound of automobile doors slamming revealed someone they had never seen before, someone they would finally have to acknowledge. Startled me out of my laptop. I had spent the morning working on merger documents while taking in the view of the ocean from my new house. Office when recognizable voices came from the driveway, saying, Mom, I'm telling. Through the open windows, Trinity's voice could be heard saying, Quinn was acting strange on the phone. She's always strange. Remember last Christmas? Nelson asked, as I slowly shut down my laptop. Heart racing. The family meeting wasn't scheduled until tomorrow, but they arrived early. Through the window my phone buzzed as I watched them unload their cars as if they owned the place, which they obviously no longer did. They arrived early for Remington game time, so I texted them back, wishing me luck. Show no mercy. His immediate response was, I heard the front door rattle of keys followed by bewildered voices. Mom, your key. Trinity said, that's impossible, I just had it checked last. It's not working. Every stride I took in my Louboutins was careful and calculated as I made my way downstairs this month. I opened the door and grinned at their faces as the sound of my heels on the floor silenced the noises outside. Mom's fingers shot to her chest as Quinn's surprised faces searched for something. I asked, just stepping aside, are you doing here? How did you get in? I live here. Please enter, literally, my house is your home. The hush that ensued was. Nelson dropped his duffel bag, and Trinity's mouth opened and closed like a fish. What do you mean you live? When Mom eventually succeeded, I knew they would follow coffee, so I went to the kitchen. I know you love it, Mom Quinn, since I just cooked a fresh pot Colombian roast. I could tell what was going on since Trinity's voice had that older sister edge. Enjoying their confusion, I poured myself a cup. I thought the family gathering was tomorrow. Did I miss a memo? Oh, no. I assume I'm not often among those who stop playing, because I smiled over my cup. This is our family home. How are you even in here? Nelson snapped. In fact, I took out my phone. Displaying the property records. My home has been there for 2 weeks. You enjoy watching Mom sink into a kitchen chair. We couldn't have known if you had. When was the last time you did that? I leaned on the counter when someone asked me what I was doing with my life. Coffee, enjoying their expressions, no loss, it's. Trinity, who was imported, took hold of my phone and began looking through the docs. How could you possibly afford the same thing that I do? It's not possible. I mentioned my penthouse residence, my Aspen vacation house, and my collection of cars. I work on the side. Remember that thing you all thought I'd never understand your. Nelson gasped when a car door crashed outside once more, and Dad's scream echoed loudly. Why is everyone gathered around the open door to assist me with these groceries? I yelled out to Dad, here, let me help you with those, and he showed up in the doorway with bags in hand. Quinn, what's happening? A family gathering arrived early, so I grabbed the bags from. He's swiftly unpacking them, but I might note that the next time, you might want to check with. Prior to purchasing food for my home, he glanced at Mom, who was still sitting in stunned quiet. I proposed that maybe we should all take a seat. I think we need to catch up, they said, pointing to the dining room. Followed me around the table where we'd eaten innumerable family meals, like sheep in a stupor, and I was frequently rejected and forced to assist with dishes in the kitchen, so I took a position at the head of this year's reunion at Dad's old table. You can't just buy our family. Trinity exploded at home. This is a custom of ours. It's funny how traditions can. They're only as strong as the people maintaining them, I added, looking at my manicure. Mom's head snapped up when the bank called regarding foreclosure proceedings. How did you handle it? I am aware of it, Mom. I am aware of the tax liens, the second mortgage, and the missed payments. Since, in contrast to other people, I examine investments before making judgments. Savannah, my phone chimed once more. Operation Karma is going well, I texted back, looking up at my backup. I grinned at my family's shocked expressions. Now, regarding those reunion arrangements. After all, I suggested that we might need to make some adjustments this year. To the windows overlooking the ocean, the new house, the new regulations, the dawning. Their expressions of understanding were superior to any merger agreement I had ever concluded. Trinity murmured, you could have told us that we were just getting started, breaking the uneasy hush that had descended over the. I could have raised an eyebrow in the dining room about your profession, achievement, and everything. Dad cleared his throat during those unanswered holiday calls or when he was not invited to family get-togethers. That's not totally fair, Quinn. I laughed, and the sound was piercing enough to make Mom wince. Let's discuss fairness. Recall my graduation from college when you. Nelson had a soccer match, so everyone skipped it. That was unusual, Mom. Nelson, who was up for a scholarship but didn't receive one, protested every week. Completed in the meantime, I accepted my MBA with honors, which none of you were aware of. Since you didn't ask, Lance's Hong Kong announcement became public and my phone buzzed. Want me to postpone tomorrow? Perfect timing. I texted Nelson back, leaned forward. What are you going to do now? Hold this over our heads and make us plead for the use of our own home. I walked to the remodeled kitchen to check what your family home looked like. The roof was leaking, the deck planks were rotting, and the old wiring was just a storm away when I purchased it. I set out a folder on the counter before and after I burned this building down. 60,000 photos to make it habitable and another 100,000 to renovate. Where was your sense of family pride? Trinity then took out a picture of herself with a pale face. Didn't realize it was this terrible as none of you cared to check. You thought everything would just happen on its own. As if you thought I would never amount to anything, Dad got up abruptly. That's sufficient, we might have made. I turned to him because of my mistakes, but you're still our daughter, am I right? I've been your afterthought for 20 years, then my phone lit up, generating a news alert, the announcement from Hong Kong having been leaked ahead of time, Moms. When the phone buzzed a few seconds later, she read Vice President of. She muttered to International Operations, Quinn, you're relocating to Hong Kong among other things. I grinned as I poured myself more coffee. This house is worth less than the merger I recently finalized. Trinity took Mom's phone and read aloud the youngest executive's entire contents. A groundbreaking merger approach is anticipated to trouble the market in the company's history. Impossible, Nelson whispered, you're just Quinn, which I echoed. It's kind of funny how it works, isn't it? The daughter you never trusted now has. Dad fell back in his chair and said, your precious beach house and runs a global division. Why didn't you claim that I did, but each time I attempted to discuss work, you shifted the topic to Nelson's most recent endeavor or Trinity's children, every success every. Politely uninterested in the promotion, my phone rang once again, Remington stocks up. Mom was still looking at her when 12% of the Hong Kong news said, you're trending on LinkedIn. Quinn, I gave you these statistics, and these are more money than you can comprehend. Indeed, they are, but that's only the beginning. What comes next, Trinity? Inquired softly as I made my way to the windows after the reunion with everything. Gazing out at the ocean I now own. The reunion is something we do differently now. Will take place, but under new leadership, which means Nelson. Challenged, which means I've already reserved the Four Seasons top floor for everyone. I turned around at the beach home. You're throwing us out, Moms. They need some alone time with their new owner. Voice broke, no Mom, I'm demonstrating to you what it's like to be left out. The distinction is that I'm doing it with 5-star lodging and a view of the ocean. Dad stood once more this time. We gradually earned it all, but Quinn, are you certain that this is what you want? I looked at each of them individually and what I wanted was 20 years of missed opportunities. I want an explanation for why I was never good, not birthdays and unnoticed gains. I took out a stack of hotel reservations and slid them across the floor since I can't have those things. Table, I'll be content to see you all discover how much you missed it. Trinity took a reservation and was astounded by the lovely description. This must have been less expensive. I cut her off for more than an hour of my new pay, think of it as a farewell present before. How long will you be gone? Hong Kong's mother questioned in a tiny voice. I grinned as I remembered all the family gatherings I had missed over the years. Enough time for you to know what it's like to be away. Let's talk about those new regulations for reunions now. The quiet that. The Four Seasons was weighed down by 20 years of regret, none of which was mine. As my family checked into their suites, the lobby was bustling with bustle, and I watched from a distance as Trinity's children ran around the marble columns while Nelson clumsily attempted to use small conversation to win over the concierge, saying, your car is ready, miss. Quinn. Mom's head whipped around at his tone, and I watched her eyes expand as she approached, the valet said, bowing discreetly. Quinn, she yelled, rushing over as she took in my Bentley sitting outside. We need to talk properly talk. Actually, I have a meeting. I verified. She stroked my arm and said, my watch doesn't pause for family drama. I observed her for 20 minutes over coffee, our first physical touch in years. Fine, the rooftop lounge for 15 minutes, observing the new wrinkles around her eyes. While I replied important emails regarding Hong Kong, Mom upstairs fidgeted with her coffee cup. When she finally spoke, I didn't. I put my phone down since I knew you were very successful. Never inquired, so we assumed she waited to find words when you slipped. Instead of dropping out of law school, I made significant corrections and was accepted to business school. Scholarship to Harvard, which you would have learned about if you had taken the time to read any of my correspondence. All your father and I wanted was for you to have a steady job, similar to Trinity's legal firm, which she didn't really launch any of Nelson's unsuccessful businesses that you owned. Financing. As soon as the door opened, Savannah entered and stopped upon seeing us. Mom was just explaining, so I waved her over and said, "Oh, sorry, I can come back no stay." Why didn't they trust me? Mrs. Brooks. Savannah nodded coolly. It's been a while. However, you probably wouldn't recall me from all of the vacations I spent with Quinn when you were at Trinity's. Of course I remember you saving it. Savannah sat down, and home mom had the decency to appear ashamed. I'm only here to settle the details with Quinn about her huge promotion, which you all choose to ignore. Trinity mom, my phone buzzed. All right, she seems upset, but she's fine. I texted her back to learn more. Quinn mom's voice was hardly audible as she spoke some harsh facts. Were we truly that awful? Savannah snorted, but I corrected her by holding up a hand. You weren't a bad mother, what was worse was your lack of interest. Now that you know I'm successful, I finished, she begged. Now that I'm wealthy, powerful, and influential, it's not making things better, rather, it's just making you reconsider because I showed you were mistaken. The door opened once more, Dad. This time, your mother has been absent for a... I pointed to an empty chair and said, come on over. We're having a great conversation about family dynamics. He talked a lot to Quinn about the beach house that I had already finished. The property has been completely repaired, the liens have been removed, and the back taxes have been paid. I smiled, but that's not what you meant. That's not what he started. Quinn, we must make a decision. Tightly, no, it never is. Savannah unlocked her laptop. 3 alternatives are available for your Hong Kong housing allowance, the Penthouse Inn. Without looking, I responded, Victoria Harbour, having already chosen Mom's coffee cup. Savannah remarked softly, did you think international executives live in studio apartments? My penthouse was clattered. Nelson family dinner tonight is my treat, can't I? My phone flared up with another text. Board meal at Lerna Den. Quinn. Dad leaned forward and said, we know we made a mistake. But pushing us away, I stood straightening my skirt. Is this really the answer? I'm buying a beach house and moving to Hong Kong. The beach house is about taking charge of something you never believed I deserved, not about pushing you away. I grinned. About Hong Kong, that's just smart business. When will we see you, Mom? I've gathered my belongings and will return for the holidays, but if I'm not. Savannah was too busy managing my section to join me, her smile jubilant. Don't. Trinity will undoubtedly keep you informed of all the family news she always has before, so don't worry, Mrs. Brooks. As we left, when I heard Mom begin to cry, I wanted to go back and console her like I always had, but that portion was shrinking daily. Are you all right? Savannah inquired on the elevator as I adjusted my luxury blazer and looked at my reflection in the mirrored walls. I must ask, but she smiled and said, born ready, better ready for that board dinner. As the elevator doors opened, I grinned and thought, are you really going to make them stay at the hotel all reunion week? The reunion meal at the Four Seasons is just the beginning. Wait until they see what I have in store for Christmas. The ballroom was just how I had imagined it would be, with sparkling crystal chandeliers. The air was filled with the sound of a string quartet, and my family was seated at the main table. Seemed extremely uneasy in their business casual clothes in the formal environment. Nelson strained at his borrowed tie, which was very required. The concierge had. When I forgot to specify the dress requirement, they provided emergency formal attire. You mean the 5-star catering and the premium? I sipped my champagne while enjoying the open bar and the private balcony with a view of the ocean. Trinity's spouse whistled as a way to make up for all the reunions I missed. The appetizers were served by servers. This caviar is authentic beluga, isn't it? It's only the best for family. Grinned, but I'm sure it's nothing in comparison to the sandwich platters you typically bring to get-togethers. Quinn, may we have a quiet conversation? Mom hadn't touched her lunch. I escorted her to the balcony, where the smell of salt and money was wafted by the seaside breeze, and I could hear. This is cruel, Mom remarked as Trinity's children yelled above the chocolate fountain. Silently cruel? I looked at her, treating. It's horrible to treat my family like this, you understand? Showing off your success like This is how you showed off Nelson's engagement or Trinity's law school graduation. I was not invited to the festivities, so I rested on the railing. We were wrong, she muttered. Do you want to hear that? I stated what I wanted. It's important for you to thoroughly consider what you missed out on in each promotion, every accomplishment, every milestone, all of which you disregarded, led to here. Lance unlocked the balcony door, allowing me to reserve a whole hotel floor without blinking. Quinn had come. He nodded before turning to face his mother, Mrs. Brooks. My name is Lance Whitfield. Mom's eyes widened as she realized that you've been teaching your daughter for the past 10 years. You're her supervisor, the one from the news. Lance actually grinned. Quinn will be on par with me starting next month. Corporate ladder, and based on her trajectory that I observed, perhaps even my superior. As my mother digests this information, she finally realizes how successful I am. It's really that, she said softly in the Hong Kong stance. I chuckled. I'll be managing operations for half of Asia, Mom. Lance looked at his watch and saw that the signing bonus alone could purchase the beach property twice. Regarding that, the Tokyo office is awaiting our call, should we? I turned to my mother. Savor the remainder of your meal. The dessert course has gold leaf. Try not to consider the price as we left, Lance mumbled, brutal eye. Adore it. Remington had returned to the ballroom bearing unexpected copies of My Face Will Appear in the business section of tomorrow's Wall Street Journal, hot off the press, he said, distributing. Thought you might want a souvenir of your daughters, I said to my stunned relatives. Success. Dad's hands trembled as he picked up a copy of Global Market. Leadership's innovative approach to global trade. Avoid stress. Trinity, an insurance agent in a tiny town, was reviewing the figures when I said, "Yourself, Dad." Told her spouse out loud that the youngest executive to oversee Asian operations is expected to. In just 5 years, Quinn Nelson's market share increased by 300%. I apologize, little brother. I spoke with you about a business possibility. I looked at my phone and saw that my investment portfolio was completely handled, but I've heard that there are some fantastic entry-level jobs at my organization. As servers brought out the main course, the string quartet resumed their performance. Wagyu meat with truffle sauce, which I observed my family attempting to keep up with. Tranquility in the midst of the luxury they never thought their forgotten daughter could. The concierge showed up at my elbow and said, "Your car is ready for the Tokyo call." I gave James a $100 bill as a thank you. Please make sure my family gets anything they. Naturally, Miss Quinn is needed. As I was gathering my belongings, Mom grabbed my arm. When will you returned from Hong Kong, and I took in the splendor of the ballroom. My family was shocked by the life I had created without them. Mom, you know what, I'm not. Yes, but rest assured that I will send images, just like you all did with the reunion pictures from all those years ago. As I go. Heard Remington telling everyone in the room to wait for the news of her new penthouse in Victoria Harbour. The sound of my heels hitting marble reverberated throughout the foyer, each step separating me from the family who never had faith in me, and I reasoned that letting them eat Wagyu would get us closer to the empire I had founded on their mistrust. Choke on each golden morsel. The seaside home was tinted golden by the dawn sun. Savannah perched on the light as I packed the final items I would need for Hong Kong. She held out a faded snapshot while I sorted through old pictures I had discovered in the attic. On your 10th birthday, as everyone is swooning over Trinity's new dog, you're the only one staring at the camera. My statement was stopped by Mom standing in the doorway with a tiny wooden box. She whispered, "Can I come in?" I nodded and kept packing. She sat on the. "I found this in our attic," she continued, turning the box in her hands on the side of the bed. "It's everything I saved about you." "I kept everything I was too proud to admit," she said, opening the box to reveal. Honor roll certificates, newspaper clippings, and even the course from my MBA graduation were omitted. "You preserved these," she said, my hands motionless on a silk blouse, each one. I convinced myself that I was being realistic and not fostering unrealistic hopes, but in reality, I was. "I'm afraid that you'll triumph where I failed and that you'll escape." She produced a business magazine from the previous year that had my name in a 30 under, which I took from the tiny town life I had settled for. 40 feature, and you stood silently, Savannah. "Give me a minute." "No." I grabbed her arm. "Stay. You're more like family then." My phone buzzed. Trinity at the beach, and the majority of them were. I texted her back, and a few minutes later, Trinity showed up looking unsure in the doorway. Nelson is also present, and we wanted to see you before you departed, Dad. They crowded my bedroom as they walked in, and Nelson gripped a. What's that? I nodded toward the manila package. He acknowledged receiving investment ideas, but not for me for the beach house. We've all. I raised an eyebrow and said, if you'll allow it, I don't need your money. We know. Dad took the initiative, but we must make an investment in our family that we ought to have made years ago. I say words, but deeds speak louder. Let us demonstrate Trinity for you. Took out her phone and said, I've decided to take a sabbatical and postpone my partnership acceptance. Perhaps I could come visit. You in Hong Kong truly get to know my sister, and I've signed up for Nelson's online business courses. I was thinking that perhaps you could help me do it correctly this time, Mom. Opened the box once more and took out a key as a last thing. We don't expect you to. Pardon us, she continued, but perhaps we can create something better. What's this for? She said, looking at the key. The front door, she said with a sorrowful smile. I maintained it for years, believing it had significance, but you demonstrated to us that what matters most isn't houses, keys, or reunions. It's about who we decide to be. Savannah placed her hand in mine as I seized the key and said firmly, we know, to which they all responded in unison. I'm still going to Hong Kong. And I'm still upset because this doesn't make you a better dad. Nothing could be stated quietly by Mom, but perhaps it's a beginning. I went to the window overlooking our ocean, my ocean, and behind me, I could hear Nelson's documents. Trinity's anxious breathing. Mom's secret pride box. The reunion, I remarked, you will all require passports, and you will alternate between here and Hong Kong. The tension snapped. Trinity. Dad had to sit down after Nelson dropped his package while laughing through tears, and Mom's voice shook. Return to them, but I chose to do so, not because you deserved it. Savannah smiled. There's a difference. Does this mean I get to design the Hong Kong reunion since I have suggestions that you all learn Mandarin? I went on to discuss appropriate corporate conduct and international navigation. Nelson continued, markets whatever it takes, and I finally believed him. My phone buzzed. Lance's car was on its way to the airport, so I took my Quinn. Mom stood and said, thank you, not for an unmerited pardon, but I examined each one of my flaws for the possibility that we didn't earn. Don't waste your time walking down to your family after struggling for a while. They were no longer pursuing me, but I could still hear them following the waiting automobile and see their reflections in the glossy black paint. Hong won't know what hit it, Savannah said, walking with me in a different but perhaps similar way. Said goodbye, giving me a hug, and I grinned as I considered the vista from my new workplace. The future is growing like the horizon ahead of us, and the family is learning my language. Neither will they, I responded. Climbed into the vehicle. The beach house behind us was no longer a representation of exclusion but a link between our past selves and potential future selves. But feasible.